Streaming up at the top.
Yeah, because I put it to our young professionals group, and then we can share it with the wider chamber as well. I've got the recording going now, and then we are going to officially start the webinar. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our colorful conversation. Today, we're going to be talking about future-proofing your career as we go into 2026 and beyond. I'd like to start by introducing Chris Conway, the President and CEO of the West Hartford Chamber.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Kate mentioned, Chris Conway. I'm the President and CEO of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to welcome you here to today's colorful conversation. If you've been around for the last 5 years, this is a program that the West Hartford Chamber facilitates through our Minority Business Network, which also celebrated their 5-year anniversary in 2025. So congratulations to the Minority Business Network for 5 wonderful years. I just want to give you a little bit of information about the Minority Business Network. The Minority Business Network champions diversity, visibility, and opportunity for professionals from underrepresented racial, ethnic, and religious backgrounds. Through focused events and initiatives, the committee provides a platform for minority entrepreneurs to share experiences, gain insights, and overcome systematic barriers. Signature programs like this one, Colorful Conversations, address disparities in critical areas such as healthcare, education, and employment, fostering an open dialogue and community-wide awareness. The MBN is a key driver in creating a more inclusive, supportive, and equitable business landscape in West Hartford. And as we mentioned, one of the areas is employment, and some of that is going to be touched on today. And this is going to be a little different than some of our other programs where most of the panelists today are all people that are active members of the committee. And today's program was born out of the fact that in our committee meetings, there's just these great dynamic sharing of ideas. And the committee decided to pull the curtain aside for this one and kind of let you see what these free-form conversations look like. Do want to recognize 2 of our panelists, Stephen King Jr. and Ja Johns, who are also founding members of the Minority Business Network. But all conversations need a gifted moderator, and I'm very, very proud to introduce Yvonne Alston from Indelible Impressions, who has been a very active member of the committee for many, many years, has moderated some of our panels in the past, including our Black History Month breakfast, and she will serve as today's moderator. So I'm going to turn it over to Yvonne's capable hands.
Thank you, Kate and Chris. Happy to be here. Really excited for this conversation. And as Chris Conway mentioned, kind of pulling back the curtain on what is important, what we discuss when we come together to make a considerable impact in society, make an impact in the minority businesses rather in the greater West Hartford region. So with that, I am your moderator for today, Yvonne Alston, Chief Culture Architect, founder and CEO of Indelible Impressions Consulting. Stephen King and Ja, would you please introduce yourselves?
Okie doke, good. Unmuted. Stephen King Jr., what's going on, everybody? Yes, one of the original founders of the Minority Business Network. I reside in South Windsor, Connecticut, husband, father. Currently, I am a town councilor in South Windsor, Connecticut. I'm the first
Woo!
town councilor in their history. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let me see what else. First Black deputy mayor in South Windsor history. I'm a musician, so jack of all trades, master of none. But fortunately, I really enjoy seeing and helping everybody around me prosper, especially our people of color. So happy to be here.
Excellent. Ja.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to say I'm J-H, as in happy. I do quite a bit of work with Lewis Real Estate here in West Hartford Center. We actually own 2 commercial buildings, so I do quite a bit of property management and helping out with community relations. Launched a new business almost about a year ago from now with Razul Wallace and Letitia Douglas. Um, One of the businesses is called RJ Enterprise, so really focused on conscious communities, where we're trying to create communities where people thrive, not just survive. It's more in the real estate realm. So we actually purchased some land in Norwich to develop a 54 unit affordable housing and middle income housing building and
Mm.
have some programming. We also have under the umbrella a couple of nonprofits. So one of them is House of Changes, that the first property and only property opened in November of last year. So we just had our 1 year anniversary. We also just had our first graduate. So the men stay with us from 6 months
Oh,
to
nice.
2 years. Thank you. Thank you. So just trying to make an impact. We also have been doing food distribution for over 3 months. So we pick up from a local grocery store and distribute to the men in the house. The house actually beds up to 8 men and is for forgotten about men who may have experienced incarceration, addiction, and/or mental health issues. So excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And looking forward to the conversation.
Excellent. Well, I was so brief with my introduction. I
Yeah,
just
right.
gave like,
I mean, my God, Ja.
yeah,
Since we're going
okay.
since we're gonna pull back the curtain, we might as well get it in like we do. I mean, my God, Ja. Really? Yeah, some of us will.
Yes. So, I'll say a little bit more real quick about myself. So, right? Well, we want to balance the scales a little bit. So, indelible impressions. I mean, come on, is dedicated to developing and advancing organizational culture. Our work really centers on driving accountability to help everyone thrive. We do a lot of work with for-profits, nonprofits, academic institutions, as well as municipalities. I lead a team across the US, and we're honored to be a part of doing work that helps to transform organizational cultures. We do workforce and leadership development, and we also engage in community convenings. So, facilitating conversations within communities and acquiring that data, providing reporting, et cetera, for that. And then I have a second venture called the Collective. We work with WNBA teams to help both women players as well as the coaches thrive, to develop both personally and professionally. So you're getting a very diverse perspective today from people who share some intersections of identity while also doing different things and making an impact in different arenas. So let's jump right in since I'm going to be moderating this kind of behind the scenes conversation.
Yep.
So we know that based on probably the last 5 to 10 years, that workforce trends have shifted significantly. When we think about the pandemic, what that was like as an experience, and then the ripple effect from that across every sector, every industry, every geography on a global scale, we've understood that there is not only a significant shifting in how that shaped careers, but specifically for minority and marginalized communities. So, having that as a backdrop and a framework for your particular industry and sectors, how has those workforce trends really changed what employers, clients, and customers might expect?
So you said 5 to 20 years, I think.
Five
Um,
to 10.
five to
Yeah.
10.
But
Okay.
namely, if we're going pivoting off of the pandemic, so 2020,
Yeah.
5 years.
Yeah, okay. So 5 to 10. I was going to say before the pandemic, I think we're really gonna pull the curtain back. And I always think in terms of my son, Roman, and he's 15 now, 16 in January, and where we were 16 some odd years
Mm.
ago, and that is when the depression hit. Depression, recession, whatever. And there's a reason why I'm bringing that up first, because it was, I think at that time, because I was a stay-at-home dad for 2 years, that the game kind of shifted. I had a Penn State degree, UConn MBA, all that type of stuff. I knew a lot of friends that did, but jobs started to, I don't want to say decrease, because at that time I was a recruiter, technology recruiter, and the
Hmm.
space started to constrict a little bit in regards to who was being hired, why they were being hired. We were working hard, we were playing hard. Cass was making a lot of money back then. That's the 2010 era. And I don't think really people were concerned. The biggest thing, and it's coming full circle. Two things. One, if you do find a new job, well, do we want to hire this person? Excuse me. When you're looking for a new job, number one, do we want to hire this person because they may not want to stay with us because they make a lot of money where they're currently at and they're leaving, not realizing why they're looking for a new job. Because all the time it's not about money. Sometimes it's about family, so on and so forth. And again, we're just coming out of the recession, depression, whatever you want to call it. And then the other point was finances. And I would say another full circle thing, ageism. How old is this person? Do we got to remold them into what we want them to be, as opposed to getting somebody that really don't know Jack, that we can pay, very low income, and then we can shape them into what we want them to be. So fast forward to now, again, to your 5 to 10 years, and I think we're hitting the same thing. COVID hit, it really changed the game. In regards to even this, I remember the first time, especially as a counselor, that's when people put the barriers up between each other. Nobody knew, let alone everybody was so concerned about security. Nobody even knew about how to do things via Zoom and so on and so forth. And anyway, in terms of COVID and in terms of the job spec, it became and is still a situation where you have ageism and you have people that have been in jobs that are making good money. But now, more than ever, we're finding that you can't find a job in regards to the sector you were in. It doesn't matter. It used to be you wanted to get a technology job. And that's when STEM really came about. But now, and I'm sure we're going to get into this because again, this is how we do our conversations. I mean, I told my son, yo, if you don't want to go to college, we already have a daughter in college doing her doctorate in nursing and all that. Then you know what you could do, son, if you want? Go into, and this is what COVID showed us. Everything was hands-on. Go into HVAC. Go into whatever you can
Yeah.
do that uses your
The increase
hands.
of the trades. Yes.
Yes, the trades. Thank you. And that's where I
Yes.
think now more than ever, and we need to figure a way, even at 52, pivot. STEM is not where it was, and neither was with the advent of AI. We hit a lot of us because we were told go to college, get your degree, you'll be good for life. And now that's
Hmm.
just not the case. So we got to figure it out.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective about the trades. I think another factor that is significantly impacting that is the cost of advanced education. And so we
Yes.
have such a high percentage of students coming out with educational debt
Yep.
at the levels of home, excuse me, home mortgages.
50,
I've
60
talked to
G.
students. I
Yep.
have two universities as clients, and it's not lost on me as to the significant cost of that. And especially when jobs aren't paying what they used to.
Right.
My particular alma mater, Quinnipiac University, I sit on a couple boards there. They're also a client of mine. And one of the things that I see pretty continuously is this rising cost of education, but yet talking to students and finding out that even with an MBA these days, on the average, they're coming out maybe, depending on geography,
Yep.
making maybe $50,000 a
Right.
year. When I first came out of Quinnipiac back in 1998,
Yep.
my first job, I was in the 70s, and that
Right.
was without anything beyond the bachelor's degree. So what we're
Or
seeing,
experience.
well, I did have experience because I was wise enough to do multiple internships and to get part-time jobs so that I was prime candidate material by the time I graduated, so I could
Right.
say, here's my education, and also here's the experience. I can add value from day one. But um, I do think that that has had a significant impact as well on moving away from traditional college track
Yep.
and some what might be considered white collar professional career pathing into more of the trades. And then you layer in the proliferation of AI and some of the
Oh,
technologies kind of taking away those lower skilled, I don't like to call them unskilled jobs. I
Yeah,
just don't like that framing as
right,
somebody who does culture work. So I will say lower skilled jobs that we do see where robots and technologies are replacing some of that human skill set. So
yep,
now it's even that much more important to go back to figuring out how do we advance and upskill in ways in areas like the trades to do the things that the machines have not figured out how to do or have replaced us in doing.
right.
But I'd like to hear your perspective on this Jaw as well, especially when we think about the work that you're doing in the sectors of both real estate as well as um, in philanthropy.
So I 100% agree in reference to the college debt and having more young people getting into trades. There's a big need. Electric Boat down in Norwich, they have a very aggressive hiring regimen. There's a lot of opportunity there. Um, One big problem we're having is there's no starter homes. So
Mm,
a median house in Hartford, Connecticut right now is $434,000. Medium house, I'm reading a list.
Yep.
In Bridgeport, Connecticut, the middle house is $768,000.
yeah.
Um, $395,000 in Norwich, and then Waterbury, 389,000. So you don't imagine what it is here in West Hartford. Um, and I was able to buy my house back in 2012.
Yeah, thank God.
Wow.
Yeah. Plus, interest rates are
Yeah.
much higher today than they were back in 2008 up until COVID. And then, so it's a lot harder between a combination of college debt, not having starter homes, and then on top of it, there's a lack of inventory. It doesn't make sense for someone to sell their house when they can't buy another house to replace it.
Right,
So a lot of people are holding on to the properties. So it puts a challenge on development, puts a challenge in the Department of Housing, puts a challenge on Chaffo to figure out creative ways to add more
Mm,
affordability and increase in inventory. Most importantly, in reference to ownership, because that's where
right.
the real wealth is. You're not going to really build wealth renting. So,
right.
in my opinion, my team's opinion, um, we believe that a great place to start is to apply for a FHA loan if you haven't purchased a house before and buy a 3 or 4 family. And hopefully work with someone you could trust. And when you work out those numbers, hopefully you're living rent free in that 3 or 4 family. So you're
Mm.
able to bank the
Right.
money. It does come with responsibility, you know, but it's a great way to start building out a portfolio and start building out wealth. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
But
that's
in
those are
particular
the
to your industry and your sector, right? In
yeah.
terms of real estate, thinking about it from a profession standpoint,
Yep.
um, how is what we've kind of highlighted in regards to um, the shifts that have been happening. I mean, you talk about the change in income, the change in maybe the cash flow and the ability to purchase a home. Yes, that impacts on the buyer side, but for you on the seller side, right? For you as part of a real estate agency or brokerage, rather, how is that impacting sales? How is that impacting marketing? How is that impacting? You mentioned inventory a few moments ago. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, a lot less people are listing out their houses. The market has changed significantly since COVID hit in 2020. So it's a different game. But during that period, we had a peak. There was a lot of people moving into Connecticut from the Boston area, from New York, from all over because they can now work remotely. But as of 22, 23, you start seeing this trend. We saw some blips of it looks like, it's going to get more activity. But, from what I've seen so far, inventory is what it is. And we have to
But let
come
me
up
let
with
me
creative
now
ways.
let me jump in. Let me double dutch on this, John, just for continuity. What have you seen though as it relates to are more people applying to be because at one point everybody was trying to be
Yeah.
a realtor. I
Yes.
mean,
Yep.
prices
Yeah.
was going through the roof, so on and so forth. I didn't want to play in that game. I'll be honest. I barely take care of my own house, let alone trying to sell somebody else's. So what have you seen since, say, COVID to now? Because during COVID, if I remember correctly, only because I remember here in South Windsor, I mean, that's when stuff started to a little bit shoot through the roof, going through it. And I remember telling people, even here in South Windsor, to your point, yo, yeah, you're gonna get a lot of money, but if you don't got a place to move, what's your point? Right? But at the same time, I know there were a lot of people that had got in real estate that unless they were in the position of what do you guys call rehabbing or whatever,
Mm.
you
Flipping
know,
houses.
yeah, exactly, flipping them. That's really where it became the money as opposed to trying to find people to sell the houses. Again, to your point, if you don't got a place to move to, then your house is not selling, you're just sitting. And that's when people started to reinvest in their homes. But did you have you found that more people are jumping into real estate now that maybe got a degree or whatever in economics?
From my perspective, I haven't seen a big difference from 2023 and now going
Mm,
into 2026. Obviously, 2020, 2021, um, there was a lot of people getting in because the game was a lot easier at that point. As it got harder, it kind of plateaued and normalized. You do see people do career
okay.
shifts
Yeah.
who are very skilled, very talented. I did a career shift. I pretty much got voluntold to come into this industry by Scott Lewis. Um, so, you know, if you have the desire and you have passion towards it, it can make sense. On the investment side, yes, there's a lot of opportunity on the investment side. Owning a brokerage on the Lewis real estate side for Scott Lewis is not easy because you're not moving as many transactions as you did in prior years.
Mm,
Luckily, he decided to pivot into commercial real estate. So that has been a
pivot.
growing inventory for us. My two business partners, Letitia and Razul, they've been purchasing multifamilies for over 20 years. So and then doing flips and things of that nature. There's
Hmm.
much, there's opportunities there, but you got to start somewhere. And like I said, I believe the best way to start is 3.5% down, purchasing a
Yeah.
house on a FHA loan. Depending on
Yeah.
your income, you might qualify for the CHFA, where they'll actually pay for
Okay,
that
John, you're
that rate
not
of
supposed to
I
use
purchase.
this
must have
time to
froze.
sell people houses,
Yeah,
sir. No
yeah,
selling
but
on the site.
I apologize. I apologize. I'll put down the
Oh,
shovel.
good. Yeah,
Um,
I know, but it's your passion and your love, so I get it, right? Trying to get
yeah.
people, especially when we're thinking about generational wealth and closing wealth gaps and all of that for our people. But keeping us kind of on this train and this thought around careers and how
Hmm.
workforce needs are evolving. So we talked about the trades. I think also when it comes to entrepreneurship, that is another change that has occurred significantly since 2020. There's a lot of data out there to support some of the rationale as to why, right? For example, McKinsey and Company noted in the last probably 45 days, if not 60 days, that over 300,000 Black women have left the workforce. I think that's upwards to close to 400,000 at this point for various reasons, of
Mm,
one of those being pushed out. Um, Part of that is also has to do with a lot of the societal dynamics and polarizations that are happening, the current political dynamics that are, pushing out efforts around diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, justice, accessibility.
yep.
Kate also mentioned about the silver tsunami in the chat, for upcoming retirees as well. These are all factors that are moving folks away from traditional jobs into entrepreneurship. That wasn't necessarily my story, but it is the story for many folks. For both of you, what has that been like in terms of the entrepreneurship journey? King, I know at one point you had a business venture out in New Haven, a
Yep.
restaurant that I frequented
Yep.
a few times that was fantastic.
Yep.
And John, I think you've had other opportunities as well. Can we speak to that a little bit if people are thinking about, hey, I just got downsized, my company's doing layoffs or is about to, right? It's percolating underneath the surface. I'm thinking about entrepreneurship. What is that journey like? What has that been for the both of you?
Woo-wee. Uh, so, um, man, where to begin with that? So yeah, so I was an operations manager, something I always wanted to do of a restaurant down in New Haven. A friend of mine at that time said, "Steve, I want to open up a new spot, and I want you to run it." Being from Philadelphia, so on and so forth. Didn't work out
Hmm.
for a number of different
Yep.
reasons. However, it was another great learning experience for me for a number
Hmm.
of different reasons. One, stepping out on faith. Also at that particular time, asking for what I wanted and needed in terms of
Yep.
finances, because I knew I was going to be putting in work, you know, at least the hour commute, so on and so forth. But even during that time, I was still singing, part of a Motown review group. And when that opportunity closed up, I literally had to sit down. So there's two things. One, and this is something that a lot of us forgot about during the recession, and then even now during the pandemic. I remember there was a lot of people that said during that course of that time, if we ever go through something else like this, and we know we're going to again, try to save up as much money as you can on the side that's liquid, so that if something
Mm.
like this does happen again, you have some flexibility in terms of time.
Mm.
You don't need to jump into something real quick or make a move that you wouldn't unnecessarily make in another situation.
Right. I think
Unfortunately,
they say on the average, like 6 months of your household expenses, including your mortgage, your car
yep,
payments, food, all of those kind of things, to have at least 6 months in the bank,
yep,
which is ideal, but
ideal.
not many folks' reality.
No, it's not
So
realistic. Right,
yeah,
right.
for a lot of folks, right? Because they're living kind of day, month to
Yep,
month, paycheck to paycheck. I think that's
yep.
most of middle Americans, and certainly even within West Hartford and the greater Hartford region,
Yep,
that's a common factor. So when you think about what it was like for you to transition
yep,
uh, and pivot within
yep.
those moments, what were some of the things that you kind of had to wrap your head around
Get over my
or
fear.
to
Get over my
be?
fear.
Yes. Can
That's
you say a
probably
little
the
bit more about that?
yeah. So I mean, I just sit down with my wife because especially as a black man, you're raised a certain way, you're taught a certain way, graduate high school, graduate college, get a job, have a family, get a home, make sure you got the job that you can last with for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, get your
Yeah,
pension,
yeah.
and then live the high life. And that's
Yep.
just not realistic anymore. I don't care who you are.
Right.
Well, maybe for some people, but that's a whole nother conversation. But for most of us, people of color,
Hmm.
that's not realistic. Not at all. And so I had to get over my fear, sit down with my wife and and be like, what am I going to do now? And she
Yeah.
was like, you love music, do music, start your own band. Da, da, da. I was like, I got the connects. Other people had told me to do that in the past. But it was still, and I'm still in that zone. Because for a lot of us, it's again going back to ageism, but it's what is the constant? What is
Mm.
am I getting money every week? Am I guaranteed whatever that money might be? $1,000. Am I guaranteed? No, with that $700 a week if you have a partner in crime. Am I guaranteed this amount of money per week? $1,000, 700 is $1,000 to cover what I might need to do. And when you don't, or you don't have that guaranteed salary, for lack of better wording, then there's a fear. And I had to get over that fear. And my wife was like, yo, we done saved. We can hold it down. Let me go through the budget. That was the other thing. Letting go of the control. Reaching
Mm.
out to people that have. See, that's the other thing we probably gonna get into when you're talking about pivoting. Sometimes you gotta be humble and reach out to cats that either have been there or this is what they actually do for a living and say, look, this is where I'm at. I'm sure we're gonna talk about with all of this happening, people's credit is shot because now they're putting stuff on credit cards over the rip. If we really trying to have a real conversation like we usually do, and people don't know what to do, and then they're scared. And so that fear of telling somebody, hey, this is where I'm at. My credit score went from a 750 to a 600. That's real. And,
Yeah.
and what do you do? So go ahead, because I know this is what we get into, but
No, I think that that's an important aspect. And I think this is where the Minority Business Network comes in, where all of us have our own businesses. We've been there in one form or fashion. So being able to tap into us as a resource for guidance as we connect with one another, right? Those of us
yeah,
who are already active members have one or two businesses, have had past businesses that maybe haven't been successful or that we shuttered for one reason or another,
right,
and how we might be pivoting in this moment to meet today's challenges. I think it's important that, one of the things that we've talked about in the past is how do we mentor other entrepreneurs to help them navigate changing landscapes, to help navigate ways in which to advance your business, whether that's on the marketing side, what is your brand story, whether that is what financial supports or investments do you need, what grants are available to support your business, all of that. So I think being a hub of ideas, being a hub of assistance in a way to our communities has been really critical and I think helpful to all of us. I'll speak from personal experience that, Minority Business Network and the Chamber, I felt saw value in not only my becoming a member, but also adding my voice, adding my perspective, and helping me to learn from others to help move Indelible into a greater space, meaning we acquired more market share for the services that we provide. Our name has, as one of my colleagues would say, is consistently in the wind. To this day, we still haven't done a formalized marketing plan and campaign. And part of that is because word of mouth, because of resourcing, meaning not financial resourcing like investments of capital or anything like that, but resourcing in people believing in what you do and why you do it. And so I think that's an advantage that we have as part of the West Hartford Chamber of Commerce and the Minority Business Network, because it does help become the wind beneath our wings and our tailwinds, certainly as we're navigating this entrepreneurial journey. So I'm thinking about also when we think about what skills matter most as we're heading into this new era where there are advancements of technology, there are these advancements in AI. And I know that to your point earlier, Stephen King, there's fear about a lot of things as an entrepreneur. And one of those things is fear of what we don't know, of what we don't understand, whether that's in the business sector or whether that's just the way people do business these days. Ja, when you think about that in the realm of technology, what do you think is most essential for people to lean into in this time?
I think is most essential to use it. Is going to be there no matter what.
Right?
And you don't want to fall behind. Also leverage your relationships.
yeah.
Um,
I was gonna say that, dog.
yeah. So leveraging your relationships so you can maximize um, what's out there and what's available. Because every week there's something new popping in on whether it's OpenAI or Gemini or any other big platforms that's out there. Um, if you're not leveraging it, you're just not going to be able to keep up with the times. For me, it's just jumping all in. I had the pleasure of working with a consultant. They had a few free classes based out of Middletown, STEAM training. And she actually has her whole staff. It's an AI Friday. So on every Friday, her whole staff is dedicated to
Hmm.
doing stuff with AI, learning something new, teaching it
Nice.
to the group.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Like we believe that doing things in a community, more of a tribal type of way, is big because you're supporting each other, and then you can find each other's blind spots. To talk a little further about entrepreneurship, um, really understanding where you're at before you get into entrepreneurship is really important. Where's your credit at? Do you have access to any equity? Do you have a life insurance policy that you can leverage? Do you have Roth IRAs? Do you have family that will support you? Do you have access to a line of credit? So a line of credits is typically one of the easier things to get into. So really understanding, and is
Oh, I
your
have to beg to differ with you there on that one, my friend.
why?
Line
Yeah,
of
yeah,
credit,
let's
yeah,
go.
Go ahead.
can we pause on that? Because line of
Yeah.
credits, I think, is a big issue for entrepreneurs,
Okay.
especially Black and Brown. Less than 1% of all line of credits are given to Black and Brown entrepreneurs. I mean, it's horrific. There are very few banks. Key Bank, as well as a few others, have special programs for that. But other than that, I mean, this is part of the reason why and it escapes me in this moment, but one of the Black women who created a capital funding venture was sued.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Atlanta or
and it is
Chicago or
now
something.
defunct because
Yep,
people
yep.
were like, well, you're creating this fund and you're specifically
They called it
discriminating
race. They called it
by
racist.
yeah, by saying that you are only funding Black women. And she's
Right,
like, I created this fund specifically because Black women weren't being funded,
right.
because they were coming with their hat in their hand to banks and financial institutions asking for startup capital and weren't receiving it. So I think when we talk about lines of credit, it's really important to shine a light on the disparities that exist there, and
Yeah,
what can be done.
I understand the disparity aspect, but you should still try to apply for it,
Oh,
and fight
I
for it.
agree. I think you have
So,
to try, but I also think that there are inroads that there are barriers.
oh
So
yeah.
when we're talking about lines of credit and being accessible, they may be accessible to general population, but when it comes down to you bringing forward your credentials, your application, your credit score, right, which is critical to
Hmm.
you being able to get any type of line of credit or funding, there are significant challenges for people who look like us. I had excellent credit ahead of starting Indelible, and since I'd had Indelible, and it was shocking to me of how many banks turned me down, or how many banks were like, hey, we want to use your house as collateral, or
Oof.
hey, we can only give you X amount of dollars. And I had a federal contract at the time, which is like basically gold, right? When I'm basically bringing to the bank saying, hey, I have a federal contract and I need this line of credit just to support, just in case, because of how the federal government pays. And even my own banking institution, which I won't name on here because
Yeah.
it wasn't really their, I guess I could say it wasn't their fault, at least on a local branch level. But I didn't even get properly funded by a bank where I already had significant monies with, both for my business accounts and my personal accounts. So access to lines of credit and funding is, and then, a pretty well-known issue for us. So getting away from that, or perhaps, thinking about tapping into us who have had certain experiences, who can be hopefully a bit more directive of where to go and where we've had success.
Like to take a step back even from that, only because I remember when we first started having this conversation, not this one in particular, but that catapulted this call is the federal government had just chopped off through Doge hundreds of, if not thousands of jobs in the federal government, Virginia, all over the country, really. And now, past this prologue, when no money was found, no thievery, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they're fighting cats and dogs like a broken, relationship. And I remember a lot of people, especially even in my own fraternity, we were like, because, people had a two-house income and they both work for the federal government and they both received letters that, you're about to get let go. And the fear was And the anxiety was, what am I going to do now? And the catalyst for this call we are currently on was, how do we talk about, we're all afraid and we all need to find a way to pivot. And I think you even coined that at a certain point. And so I'm latching onto that because that's really what it comes down to. At the age of 52, I don't have a federal contract or anything like that, but let's just say, go back, I think maybe about a month or so, we were having this conversation that,
Mm-hmm.
what am I going to do now? And it was
Yeah.
like, you know what? Even though I went to school for marketing, even though I'm a great salesperson, I'm not doing that at 52 anymore unless you paying me 100 G's. I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
But I got a mortgage, I got a family. So what do you do? And I remember, and even in this conversation, I wish a couple of our other members were on. Shout out to Jackie who's lying, saying she's at the dentist. But
Stop.
um, but
Poor Jackie. Jackie,
yeah.
if you're listening, honey, you got a pass today. You had a medical situation. King, be kind.
Be
King, be
nice.
Yeah,
kind.
well, this is pulling back the current, and there's love for all of us. And it was
Yes.
one of those situations where we're like, you know what? She had a lot of friends in the federal government that had those types of jobs and so on and so forth. And for what she does, seeing the anxiety, I can't imagine to look back to see, because even though it was only several months, how
Yeah.
many people, whether suicide, whatever, had to do stuff because they didn't know, but more importantly, they weren't prepared to pivot. And for me, it was looking at certain things like, all right, do I look at Lincoln Tech? Do I do this? Do I do that? But when
Mm,
I said I wanted to take a step back, some of the stuff that we miss is, and John alluded to it, is the networking, is the
yeah.
reaching out, but then holding those networks accountable. Like, yo, you running your show, not you personally, but you're the power person. I need a job. You know who I am. You know what I bring to the table. Do you have an opportunity for me? Because this is where AI kind of jumps in and it changes the game in a way that I don't think is productive. We don't have the human touch anymore. We don't have the, okay, you're in a situation. I know you can manage. I know you can do this. Let me help you through this transition, building that
Hmm.
loyalty. And so, you know, where is that conversation in terms of making that pivot? Who do you reach out to that you can trust to say, hey, I need to get through this time? And are we even seeing that anymore? Or is everybody just holding on to their job? And
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Margie
Again,
talked
that was just
about
some of the stuff
job.
that popped up.
Yeah, Margie talked about job hugging in the
Right.
past, like people just kind of holding on to their jobs with their fingernails, right? Because they're so afraid of, and rightfully so, this job market that is very volatile, very uncertain, and then not being fully confident, maybe stepping into entrepreneurship because it is hard. It is all three of us, have
Hard.
our own businesses, and it's not easy. It's not easy to make the decision to pivot into entrepreneurship from a traditional job, nor is it easy once you're navigating it. And I appreciate what you said about the federal contracts because I had past tense that federal contract, but due to changes in the current administration, that went away, and that was a big line item in our annual budget and our annual incomes. So when we're thinking about this and we're talking about future proofing, right? So
Yep.
we have to continue to while hearkening to wisdoms of the past, think about what's needed ahead. Ja, what piece of advice were you given when you started on this journey? What is the one piece of advice that was given to you that you would not give to somebody else today
Woo!
because
Love
it's
that.
either no longer relevant or it's just it wasn't good advice?
Yeah, love that. Love that.
I
And your
think
And
job.
King, think about that too. Hmm.
I think the biggest mistakes I've made is choosing the wrong business partners. Um,
Mm,
Alignment and clarity is very important. So making sure your core values align, and um, and then when I say clarity, there's transparency and communication. So when there is an issue or there's anything that needs to be communicated, it's out in the open and not hidden. So having those things is very pivotal in reference to being successful and growing and scaling appropriately. So you can make those pivots and you can scale properly. Um, Best advice I've gotten is really focusing on like where's your cash flows going to come from and how quickly can you start and can you just start small and get some cash flow going. And that's something I see in you, Yvonne. You've done very consistently in reference to being supportive and being able to help our clients and being able to do that and then be able to scale and hire people to be able to help build their futures. So that's been very, very impressive to see what you've done, Yvonne, over the years. I have so much respect for you. Stephen
Thank you.
King, um,
Oh
you
Lord,
know,
here we go.
networking expert, right? So when you have a problem, you need to be able to find an expert that can help solve it. And if you have friends, they'll give you advice for free. And then
Right.
hopefully you can
Good
do
point.
that in kind on the other way, on the other side. And just being
Yeah.
mindful of their time. So if they're going to take the time to give you the advice, try to receive it as quickly as you can and implement it. So you're maximizing that relationship. You don't want to tarnish it, and you want to make sure that you're really following through on that advice. And if it's not working, communicate that it's not working, and what can you do differently.
Right.
So really being able to measure and be as transparent and humble about what type of success you're having. But if you can hyper focus, especially in the beginning, on the cash flow and creating a strong budget, um, those things will really yield to a lot of success long term.
Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. So Stephen King, so
Let
flipping that
people.
around,
Yeah.
um, what piece of advice were you given early on that you thought maybe was good sound advice then that either wouldn't be relevant today or didn't pan out the way that you thought it would?
Um.
Like took the
But
advice, you implemented
yeah.
it, like,
That the,
that
the
didn't work
markets.
out so well.
Yeah. The market's always open, and for whatever you do that you love to do, people are gonna love to see you do it. Yeah, that may
Mm,
be true, but they may not want to pay to see you do it. At
uh,
the end of the day,
there that is. Wow.
they'll pay they'll pay the other person, but because they know you, oh, come on, Steve, come on now. You know how we
Oh,
do.
oh, yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's
The friends
like,
and family discount. Yes,
yeah,
that
and
part.
it's and you can't do that. You have
You
to,
can't do
if
business
we're
that
talking
way.
about the entrepreneur side, or even when you're pivoting, you know,
Yes,
this is what I'm looking for. You can't be mad at somebody if they don't give you what you're looking for and you didn't tell them. You know what I mean? They're
yeah,
not going to say, "Oh, Steve, yeah, we know you got, this, that, and the other, and so we're going to give you 70 G's off the rip." Or, whether it's a gig or whatever, we're going to pay you $5,000. Nah, you're not walking in the, perform at Chuck E. Cheese. No, they pay you $100 a man, which doesn't even cover your overhead. And so
right.
times have changed in regards to using John's term, the cash flow, but on both ends. A lot of places aren't bringing in the money that they used to be. It used to be sex, drugs, rock and roll. Everybody's working hard, playing hard. That money is not the same, especially with us. It's just
Yeah,
not. And that was some of the advice that I was like, man, I thought everybody loves Steve, let's go. But no, people want to get it for free. And it's like, and picking and choosing who you might do that for.
yeah.
Because
I think, yes, yeah,
later on.
absolutely. Kate dropped in the chat about, it doesn't matter what you study, just get a 4-year degree was advice that she had been given, and it will more than pay for itself. I agree. That was similar advice I had gotten. And then the discussions around advanced degrees, right?
Yes,
Somebody had asked me not that long ago if I had my PhD
right,
and a doctoral degree. And I said, no, I don't. And they were trying to encourage me to
right.
get it.
Me too.
And I thought about it and I was talking to someone else that I think has incredible wisdom. And she said, it would be great for you from a learning perspective because you're a voracious learner. But Yvonne, you're kind of already at the top. You're already a CEO.
Well, that too.
Like it's
That too.
not necessarily going to bring you more money and more income, but it will because you are an entrepreneur, right? And I own the company and there's no 401k match. There's nobody else investing in education but me. So she's like, you're going to go into debt for a PhD that might not ever truly pay for itself. And so thinking about that advice, sometimes
Truth.
we're very quick to point people in that direction, to Kate's point about getting education and so forth. And that is great. But as an entrepreneur, especially as an entrepreneur, you may not have access to a lot of funds available to do that. While there are scholarships and things like that for entrepreneurs, it's still an out-of-pocket expense that you really have to sit down and do the math to figure out, am I actually going to recoup this in the acquisition of business or other opportunities that will make this worthwhile, adding to the level of stress and time
Right.
constraint that you already have as an entrepreneur. And
And
so,
everybody's life is not your life. Not to cut you off, but everybody's
yes,
life is not your life. So that person, and this covers a whole bunch of spaces, where that person is at in their life, that may help them. But even in
correct.
regards to my MBA, it was like, I remember being at Hobson Associates, full-time recruiter, making more money than I'd ever seen, top
Yeah.
10, whatever. And I said, hey, I told my boss, said, yeah, my wife, now my ex-wife said, hey, you need to go back for your MBA. You're strong in all these spaces. Man, just imagine
Mhm.
if you do this, you're going to be that. And I was like, bet. And then my boss was like, what are you doing? You're making over
Mhm.
six. What do you need an MBA for? You're going to get this debt, that debt. If you want another challenge, I can give you another challenge, but don't do that because you're already good here. Stay focused in here
Yeah.
and strengthen that. And
Yeah.
the times changed. The times shifted. She ex-wife, I got this debt, and it would have been good for her, and she meant
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
but the thing shifted, and that was never a passion for me.
Mm.
Yeah.
Even going
And
back to
that,
what John was saying earlier, when you love what you want to do, then you seek out what's going to get me to that place. That for me, yeah, it looks good. But even now, and I'll admit I'm bitter about it. I got this debt.
not bad. No, you're better. You're not,
Yes,
you're not,
I
I'm
like it
bitter
better.
better.
you're not bitter.
Bit,
You're better. You're
Better.
better for it.
I'm
It's a
triple B.
lesson.
Yes, I'm blessed, bitter, better.
Well,
But
you know what? That that is an entree point into the next part of our discussion, right? So when we think about that, when we think about the passion factor, when we think
yep,
about, like I say, for example, that I feel very much purpose for the work that I do. It's what rises me up every morning, and I put head to pillow, exhausted, but I sleep well
right.
because I love what I do and I come at it hard every single day, more than I ever did for the 20 plus years that I spent in corporate. And so it is important to have passion and a sense of purpose because I do believe that it'll make you successful beyond your wildest dreams. And I'm not equating success necessarily with a
Right,
dollar amount,
right,
right?
right.
It's about having things, but feeling a sense of personal success like I never had before. I think that is one of the core factors as to whether or not you will be successful as an entrepreneur versus, hey, I'm really good at this, and so I'm going to maximize a
Mm,
particular skill or talent that I have, but more so making sure that you're doubling down, if you will, on the thing that drives you, the thing that is unique, that you're just like, oh, you know what, this really irritates me and I want to solve for this somewhere in the world. And so it drives you differently. Success to me then is inevitable. Is that fair to say, or is that inaccurate, or is that a little pie in the sky Pollyanna-ish? And it's like, yeah, Yvonne, that sounds real good, but that's not how it always works out.
So on the team, I'm a lot like you, Yvonne. I'm the dreamer. And I believe with leading with your passion, but you do have to have people around you that can actualize it where the rubber meets the road.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
and you
Keep you in
know,
reality still. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So you know what step one and step two will be, and then when is that return going to happen? So you can at least assess the risk.
Hmm.
And you're not going to be able to grow a business without taking risk.
Yeah.
So all those things are very important, but in my opinion, you start with your heart, like what you're talking about. You start with your passion. You start with the fact that you're seeing a problem growing and getting worse. Like the gap between the haves and have-nots are getting wider and wider because of how expensive things are. The
Hmm.
price of lumber now is significantly more expensive than it
Oh yeah,
was back in 2019, and it
right.
continues to get more and more expensive. And that's everything. That's milk. So just to live is getting more and more expensive. Your money is not going as far. So it's just really understanding economics and being vulnerable, to be able to communicate that to people that you can trust, to be able to come up with a clear plan and strategy to be
Hmm.
successful. You were talking about future proofing in the last question. Um, to me is like, let's say you have established business similar to yours, Yvonne. Um, I think focusing on growing the business is the best strategy, but doing it in a wise manner. So one of my friends, what he did about 2 years ago, um, he decided he did all the sales for his company. So he was the sales guy. I think he had 10 employees at the time. And he decided, you know what, I need to hire someone to actually do sales with me. That was the best decision he made. He ended up 4Xing his overall production. And then now he's opening multiple locations, and he's looking at having five locations over the next 5 years. But again, it's more in that growth mindset. If to me, you're either growing or you're dying, and but you have to have a clear strategy. And I always recommend finding mentorship, and
Mm.
investing. Like there's programs you can invest into that help you map out a clear business plan of what that looks like and find the holes and the gaps. So that's where
Yeah.
I would encourage you to invest your money, is in those type of certifications that yield immediate return on your current business strategy. And a lot of people don't know they exist. I don't know all the ones that exist. No one does. There's no self-made millionaires. It's just you being open and humble enough to seek out the information and ask for advice, and just keep turning those stones until you find what you're looking for, and knowing and having the faith that is there.
I want to jump in on that humble piece because even Marjorie said, which I agree with, um, be flexible with the
Mm.
opportunities, recognizing that, and again, going back to the whole pivot thing, because a lot of people may not have the financial resources to invest like they would want to. But be humble and be flexible because what may happen, and this has happened to me in past situations, that you may take that job that's unfortunately only paying, I don't know, 17, $20 an hour. Let's just say, you know, you humbled yourself to the point where you say, look, I'm gonna do the overnight shift. Nobody wants to work overnight. Everybody wants to work during the day, 9 to 5. But you know what? I'm gonna be humble and flexible and take that overnight shift. Because what could potentially happen, and this has happened to me, so I guess I'm going back on what I said earlier, but I'm still a little bitter, is that somebody said, wait a minute, you got an MBA? And I was like, yeah. Oh man, did you know about this management program? Now, it's not something I ever wanted to do, but I was flexible and humble because I needed to do that. And again, we're talking about pivoting. I needed to make that happen. I couldn't be so focused on what I had to have that I
Mm.
wasn't flexible or humble if somebody were to say to me, hey, Steve, have you ever thought about doing this? I know it's not going to pay what you used to or whatever, whatever, whatever. However, if you get in and then show others, then you might shoot up, or you may find something else that you might be interested in that on first glance that you applied for a job, you might not have had the certifications, for example. But
Yeah.
now
Yeah.
somebody saw your work and they're like, we'll take care of those certifications. We need you over here because we see you're a great
Yeah.
leader or you're a great such and such.
Yeah,
And
being accessible, and
yeah,
and you know what you're talking about, Stephen, is bringing a spirit of excellence to what you're doing, even if it's not your ideal opportunity, even if it's not what you want to be doing long term, because people will see that spirit of excellence, not to be misconstrued or conflated with perfection, because perfection doesn't
no,
exist for any of us. But
no.
if we're bringing our best to whatever it is that we're doing, there's value in that
Being
that
flexible.
will
Yep, yep,
be
yep.
witnessed. and that opportunities may open up to you. I think what we're all kind of speaking about in general when we think about certain skill sets and future proofing our careers, and you hear this on just about every podcast and every article by, Harvard Business Review and MIT and so forth, is resiliency, right? Is
Mm,
that one, the adaptability and the resiliency factor. And I think that those are important. For Indelible, even though it is grown well beyond my initial wildest dreams and imaginations for it, at the same time, my industry, if you will, took a huge hit over the
yeah.
last year and a half.
Yep.
And so looking at the landscape and saying, what will employer groups be needing in the future, right? What do
Right.
they need right now? What will they be needing in the future? How do we optimize the skill sets of the current team to be able to deliver on that? How do we add value to our clients now that is not costing them any extra money, but will build and bring longevity to our relationships and a certain level of loyalty that when things do may get turbulent and difficult, they want to hang in there with us. And I think because we were flexible and are flexible because we were doing some kind of future casting of what could occur and how it could negatively impact our business. And we were providing that value add because it was a core value of ours.
Yep.
We saw very little jumping ship when everything changed. To date, we've only lost from our book of business really three clients because of executive orders from the current administration, things like
Right.
that, for organizations that were like, hey, we can't put at risk, we get certain financial supports and reimbursements from the federal government, so we can't continue with this particular program. And you can't fault them for that. But majority of our clients, at least 70, if not 75%, have stayed with us and have gone through the storm with us because we were providing value, because we had those deeply entrenched relationships, and because we were doing a bit of that future casting so that we knew what was coming and we prepared for it.
Right.
And so I think part of future proofing is not just getting too comfortable in the present state of the market,
Yep.
the current, areas that are booming right now, but to be thinking about whether it's your present career or it's your present business, what might be needed in the future. And as you are growing your career or your business, giving some space and time to building that resiliency for the future. And I also
Yep.
want to go back to something we said about education and so forth. Yes, you might not be able to necessarily invest financially in a significant way in advanced upskilling and things like that, but there's Coursera, there's LinkedIn Learning,
Yes.
there's people who are willing to share information and,
Yep.
and great book recommendations and
Yep.
YouTubes. There's so much education available to us that really doesn't
Online.
cost us money out of our pockets, but costs us time and intention
True.
that we need to invest in. So maybe that's the factor, is not trying to necessarily figure out where do I find the money to advance education and skill set, but where do I find the time and making that time and then getting the resources around you for that time. Local libraries, listen, I know everything's available online, but we're missing out by not spending time in our local libraries. There are great free access to business books,
Right.
entrepreneurship, magazines that have outstanding articles. Chat GPT. I mean, we're talking about a little bit about AI at the top of our discussion. There's a lot of information. I would double check your sources and ask for source citations for anything that you find. But even asking that as well, like, hey, how do I do this? Here's my idea. How can I morph this into a potential business plan? And then who should I be reaching out to in order to grow certain knowledge bases or who do I reach out to get more information on how do I better market the potential of this
Relationships.
business, etc. Yeah.
Relationships. You said it, and I couldn't agree with you more in terms of, again, going back to the old pivoting thing. Your relationships may be a way, if you humble yourself, to find a way to secure your next opportunity. By that, I
Hmm.
mean, I'm involved in a lot of different things here in South Windsor. And one of the things that I'm involved in is when we do certain special events that need electricity, that need, telecom, all that type of stuff, right? And there's this brother
Right.
that does all the wiring and for different, what do you call them? Fairs, the fairs that we have out here.
Yeah.
And I was like, dog. And he has a whole black crew.
Mm.
And I'm like, dude, how long you been doing this, dog? He said, XYZ123. He said, yo, this is, I'm making this, that, and the other. But you jump in, you get, I forget what it's called, but the mentorship, all that other type of stuff, you get your own in a heartbeat. And it's like, for
Yeah.
real? But if not for that relationship and me humble and just asking that question, and it goes back to something you were also saying in terms of the future proofing, finding out what industries or what businesses are looking for people or looking for what I like to consider experts. I always say, act as if. Act as if you know what you're talking about. Don't nobody know you don't know what you're talking about but you. Act as, I'm not saying lie. But what I am saying is they're looking for people that are experts in their different genres that they're looking for and saying, okay, man, we really need some electricians in this, going back to that
Hmm.
example. And
Yeah,
then,
it's like finding out what their pain points are, right?
yes,
And that's helpful. And shout out to Margie Brown because and she's gonna love this. I can't wait to hear her cackalacking about this one. But I had to I guess you could say I had to offload my
keep it real.
executive assistant.
Yeah, keep it
And
real.
so
Yep,
I needed talent. I needed an executive assistant, a virtual executive assistant that was going to be really strong, that had certain areas of knowledge that was going to be able to jump in and swim in the deep end quickly.
yep.
And Margie sourced that person for me, and she's absolutely fantastic. And so you're right. This is where those relationships come into play and not building relationships for the sake of leveraging them, but
No,
I
no,
dare
no.
say
Yeah.
being genuine in your relationship building, in your networking. And I think that pivots us to another perspective. I think we all network really well. Ja, I will
Yep.
say, sometimes, Ja, you are the king of networking. Like I can't tell you the number of places I have been where either Ja has connected me with someone, somebody knew of Ja, and then Ja, and they always know Ja for the baseball cap and the blazer, or the the sports coat. Ja,
Right.
who wears the baseball caps and the sports coat? Yes, that Ja. And so, thinking about that, because when we talked about a little bit the investment of time as it relates to upskilling and education, but spending some time in the networking as well, I think is important. Ja, what would you say is your kind of secret sauce when it comes to networking?
Like you find something interesting in the people that you're talking, someone that you're talking to, like be naturally
Okay.
curious. And that vibration is profound. And then I have some go-to questions that I utilize. So one of them is where are you from? But I always ask, did you go to high school there? Were you born there? And from that conversation, it usually opens up the floodgates. But if you're naturally curious in the person, and then humility goes a long way too, but you also have to have some confidence.
Big
Um,
time. Big
so,
time.
when you're networking, looking them in the eye, shaking their hands, and you're gonna feel nervous, but
We all do.
take that walk anyway. So feel the
Mm,
nervousness and take that step and say hello and be okay with someone not necessarily gonna say hello back to you. But you'll be surprised as you practice it, how far a smile will get you, once you practice it enough. And you just got to get out there and keep doing it.
That's what the
Um,
chamber
yeah.
is good for. That's what the
yeah.
Yeah.
chamber, I tell you, so
Yes.
many people, again, being in South Windsor, now he's waving. Anyway, uh, you know, I got referred to West Hartford Chamber. My God, I think Chris might have just been starting. But
Hmm.
at that time, there might only been maybe, because he was trying to bring it back, maybe 10 to 12, maybe 20 cats meeting at the top of the library. This was every Friday was like back in the day when, everybody's chamber was trying to rock and so on and so forth. And at a certain point, quite honestly, yes, I'm a sales guy, but like Josh said, I'm still get nervous. I still don't necessarily like talking to people that I'm not comfortable with. But
Mm,
when I acted as if, and at that particular time I was in print design, I was the expert in the room about what I did. And so whether
yeah,
somebody needed it or not at that time, again, the chamber was very successful, and the best chambers usually are, where it's not based on, say, for example, like other services, I'll call it out like a BNI or something like that, where you gotta pay for it in order to get it back, or you gotta use me in order for me to use you, and then we're all both successful. No, sometimes it's the relationship piece that says, no, I don't do this, but you know what? I know
so
Yvonne.
and so does.
Oh, you know
Yeah.
what? I know Clark. I don't know what bank he's at right now, but I know that's what he does.
Shout out to Clark.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, see, people want to see the
It's
credit
Webster,
pull
by
back.
the way.
Yeah, yeah, right. Let's start pull back. I don't know what Patricia had right, but I know she does this, right? And it's
Yes.
only because I acted as if I knew, and then somebody would say, "Man, I really wish I'm about to go to this trade show, and God,
Yeah.
this online and this online. Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute. I think Steve does something like that. Hold on, and don't be afraid to bat.
Yeah.
Hey, Ja, and put them in a chat. Hey, John, this is Steve.
Connect
This is
people.
Yvonne.
Don't
Bop,
be,
bop,
Yeah.
bop.
yeah, don't gatekeep. I
No,
agree with
don't.
that.
And
Yeah, don't.
and
I like this part of our conversation too, because you're right. Networking doesn't necessarily, is not necessarily intuitive. I loathe networking events. People who really know me know that I'm
Right.
an ambivert and that I get very overwhelmed by big volumes of people. Like I can do it from the stage, I can speak from the stage, but when I'm actually having to go into networking events and all that, I get super nervous. I get a little tongue-tied, and I professionally speak for a living. But
Right.
it's not always comfortable. And I've also found I don't like the performativeness of it oftentimes. So I'm use two things that both of you mentioned, right? Which is one, curiosity. For me to ask people questions, not what do you do, but to ask them something interesting and start off an interesting conversation like, you know what? I'm curious, like what are you reading right now? Or what series are you binge watching on Netflix, right? Things like that that aren't necessarily focused on what we do, because I think that people are so much more than what they do. And then they feel a genuine sense that you're trying to connect with them as a human versus just connecting with them for business purposes. And
Right.
I think those people are much more likely to A, stay in the conversation with you and let it take its natural course into the professional realm. And
Right.
then they'll be much more likely to introduce you to others because they don't feel like you just connected with them just for a business purpose. And then I think also the humility part. It's okay to be in a networking environment and to say, "Oh, I don't know what that is," or "I don't know what that means," or "Wait, what is that acronym?" You don't have to act like you have all the answers. People love to educate
Yes,
majority
you
of
do.
the time. And so just using that humble curiosity, combining the two, right? That humble curiosity to ask questions that you don't necessarily need to go into knowing all the things. But I do highly recommend, if I were to give a piece of advice, for everything that you don't know what you do and
Yep.
know what value you bring.
Right.
Because if you can do that, and we might frame it as the elevator pitch, you
Yep.
might find that those conversations stall out and people might move away very quickly. So if you spend time doing nothing else before your networking event,
Yep.
definitely take time to think about, how would I answer this question? If somebody asks me, what is it that you do?
Yep.
Or whatever. I like to frame it as, what value do you bring through what you do? And that makes people think a little bit like, ooh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought about that before, but no kind of answers to questions like that. And again, this is where AI is your friend. So you can go to ChatGPT and say, hey, I'm not great at networking based on this, and this that I say about myself. What could be, three great lines that I can drop about who I am and what I do and practice that.
Be
You don't have
timely.
to come up with everything yourself. This
Yep.
is where using your resources is to your advantage.
Be timely
So,
though. Be timely. One thing I learned a long time ago is recognize the time that, and you have to use yourself. When somebody leaves your voicemail, if people still do, how long do you listen? Or do
yeah,
you just pick up the phone, maybe listen to see is it urgent or not, and then hang up and just call that person? As opposed to putting yourself out there, again, going with the pivot, because that's what you're going to
mhm,
have to do. You are no longer the expert in terms of what you are accustomed to doing for the past 10 to 15 years. You just got let go. You just got laid off. You just got fired or asked to resign.
mm,
Your pivot is now, how do I say, and this is why the MBN is also very good in terms of relationship building and not worried about putting yourself out there, which is something else that you need to do. Put yourself out there. Make somebody say, yo, there was that dude or there was that girl. She was crazy. I remember her because of XYZ reason. Don't be what everybody is just because you think that's what people are looking for. You got to do
yeah,
something
stay
that's,
unique
yes, be memorable, not in
and
necessarily a
authentic.
negative way, but when
Yeah,
you're networking, have
yeah,
your thing. And so, what I used to do all the time, I still do it. Going back to the voicemail, is I will time myself. I am very
mm,
conscious of time. And if it's not 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and you haven't gotten your point across, or what a lot of people don't do, again with your pivot, because a lot of you may be new to this, leave your name and your phone number and a way to get in touch with you at least twice on your call. Nobody knows who you are. Hey, what's going on? This is Stephen King Jr. I just wanted to reach out to you because I'm looking for XYZ reason.
I met you
Again,
at
this is
such and
Stephen.
such event. We talked
Yes.
about blah, blah, blah.
But
Yes.
again, this is Stephen King Jr. My phone number is 860-558. And don't act like everybody knows who you are. 860-558-5118. I'm not trying to go back and no.
Yeah,
Eight six
yeah,
zero 558 5118. And again, yes, it's Stephen King. Yes, just like the author. Oh, okay, yeah. Leave it. And again, this is for y'all to have to pivot. I know I'm a sales guy, but what I am suggesting is a lot of us, what we don't do is we're scared. And
yeah,
and for me, MBN, just like me, Josh, just like me and Clark, just like me, Patrice, just like me, Mark, all of us, now we can reach out to each other without that fear that you're gonna blow me up or judge me and say, yo, this is where I'm
yeah.
at. I need your help.
Yeah, as Jackie said in the chat, it's the power of MBN is that building relationships and as we learn from each other and we grow with each other and even conceivably do business with one
Yes.
another, right? I
Yep.
just mentioned a few moments ago about the value um that Margie, the impact that she just had on my business, and that's significant. So as we're getting ready to close out the conversation, because this has been a fun discussion, when we think about supports, resources, connections that would make the biggest difference for someone who needs to be future proofing, again, either their careers or their businesses, what is one singular piece of advice of support about resources or connections that you could offer? And I'll go ahead and start with you, Job.
Is this for a startup company, existing company?
Ah, talk to people that's
This
broke.
is for this is for whether it is an entrepreneur or this is for somebody who is pivoting career wise.
I,
What is one support resource you could suggest or connection
I just got
um,
fired. I just got
that
fired.
would make the biggest difference for somebody right now? What advice would you give them?
You are the people you surround yourself with. I think, and for me, the most important part are those relationships, like we've been talking about, and then really hyper focusing on an actual strong plan to be able to get that cash flow because you really can't do anything without having that cash flow.
Mm,
Okay. I'm gonna pivot before I go to you, Stephen King, over to Jackie. Jackie said in the chat, remind yourself that you are unique and worthy and have a story to tell. And I love that because that is very, very true. You know, we all have some value to offer. Um, Identify that within yourself and be able to speak that as part of your truth. I think that people buy into you before they will ever buy into your services or your product. All
mm.
right, you, Stephen King, what
That's
piece of
no,
advice would you give?
that's it. I mean, Jackie stole that from me, but she just put it in the chat. Um, I keep it real. So, yes,
Jackie, just get them next time.
that's it. That's why I take all these shots now. I think the networking piece is huge. You got to put
Yeah.
yourself out there when you're looking to pivot. I would say 99% of you guys, I would not know under any other circumstance except for the West Hartford Chamber. I would not know you. I wouldn't be out here in West Hartford.
That's
I mean,
fair.
I'm in South
Yeah.
Windsor, but I wouldn't be out there. And the fact that a chamber, for a number of reasons, and I'm thankful that the chamber is in a place where they say you don't have to pay to play. Now, you might eventually, and it's going to be worth it.
Well,
But
I
in
don't
order
know. I
to,
think Kate and Conway would say, but pay your dues, please.
yes, pay your dues. But what I'm saying is, I don't have to pay in order to introduce myself to everybody first.
Yes. Yes.
I don't have to, when I show up at the chamber meeting, somebody's not at the door saying, "Hey, did you pay the $15 to get up in here?" Like some services, you got to pay to play. And I'm thankful that the chain, because again, I would not even know you guys. And there's been
Yeah.
times where
Yeah.
I've been down and out and said, "John, I need a place to do X, Y, and Z." And he opened up the office to me. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Clark,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah. All the, even how the MBN got created. I wouldn't even know Jack if not for the West Hartford Chamber and the MBN. And I say that to say that, okay, maybe it may not be the best fit for you, right? However, if you are trying to future proof, trying to pivot, you are going to meet people that in other circumstances you might not in a very comfortable setting. And that's why the MBN was created, to be quite honest. We needed a place to talk. At the time, it was just a bunch of white folk that was in the room, and we was like, okay, how can I be real? I'm going through this relationship, whatever, whatever, whatever. And that's what allows us to have these types of conversations so I could say and crack on somebody and they're not taking it personally. They know that's just how we are as a culture and what we do. But if I said, "Hey, Jack, this is the situation I'm in, what you think?" Boom, she's ready. She's there. Steve, I know you, whatever, whatever. Even if I just met you once or twice, you were connected to me by somebody else. And like she said, I got you. There's no question. The phone call
Yeah.
comes through. And so from a pivoting standpoint, I won't beat it, but this is the type of stuff that really gets me excited because right now we got too many cats out there that haven't been working for 6, 7 months, but they've been living in a silo, afraid to tell somebody else because of what they've been known for in their past. And I'm saying to you, when you watch this in the future, speaking to myself as well, don't be afraid to reach out to those individuals and say, "This is where I'm at. This is where I would like to be. Can you help me?" Because even if they
Yeah.
put certain things in front of you, it could be
Yes.
the pivot that you didn't even know you needed.
You know what? And that is a perfect segue into mine, where I would say invest time in building community,
Hmm.
right? Because you never know what you might need because life is going to continue to evolve. There will be people and political administrations and all kinds of things happening in the world that might move your career or your business into a new space, and you want to be able to tap into folks. But if you haven't built community, it's going to
Yep.
be a heck of a lot scarier and a heck of a lot harder. But when you have community, you can reach out, right? When you have community, you can say, "Hey, I'm not doing so well, you
Right.
know can can you check in on me?" Or you can say, "Can you introduce me to some
Yeah.
folks?" Or whatever the case may be. But I think building it authentically and not just being performative about it and not just being an extrapolator, right? Of just engaging with people and building community just for the sake of tapping into them in that way versus building authentic relationships that pour into you and that you pour into in reciprocity. And I think that that's really important. So I would say for anybody looking to future proof their careers or their businesses, building community wholeheartedly and intentionally, but not performatively.
Mm,
So
okay.
yes. So I'm gonna drop my mic right
Yes, you
there.
did. That was
Because
some
listen,
double
in
P's.
talking about pivot, I was not supposed to be moderating a doggone thing today, and yet here I was pivoting so that I could do this
Right.
today, which didn't feel like a moderation as much
Right.
as it felt like a conversation, a community conversation, and I'm always grateful for those. So we heard in the chat from Eva Grochowski. I'm in homeless services, and this conversation has been very inspiring. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Send me a check.
Eva,
Send me a
yep.
check.
Oh, stop. He's joking. Don't send him a check, but he'll take a cup of coffee on occasion, every now and then, as long as it's good coffee. Jackie said, grateful for you are. Michaela gave us a clap up, so we appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of this community. Thank you to Kate and Conway for creating a space for this.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you to you, Yvonne, for sort of guiding this conversation, and thanks to Ja and Stephen for participating. We love to hear your insights and your thoughts on these topics. That's why the MBN is such a fantastic place to be. And if anybody's interested in learning more about how to get deeper involved with the Minority Business Network or the West Hartford Chamber, you can always email us, info@whchamber.com. Stephen King, I'm going to say it again, info@whchamber.com.
There it
Like you said,
is.
you got to say it twice. Yep. And we look forward to future conversations. This was recorded. It will be housed on our YouTube channel. So if you didn't get to hear the whole thing, we will make sure that that link is made available as soon as we can. On behalf of the Chamber, once again, thank you for everybody who participated, and we look forward to the next events.
God bless you. Good night.
Thank you, everybody.